The wedding invitation that never came. My name is Emma Carter, and for most of my life, I believed my family loved me. Not perfectly, not equally, but enough. At least, that's what I told myself. I was the younger daughter in the Carter family. My sister Olivia was 4 years older than me. Growing up, everyone always said the same thing. Olivia was born to shine. She was confident, beautiful, outgoing, this kind of person who walked into a room and immediately became the center of attention. I was different, was quieter. I liked keeping my promises. I liked solving problems. I was the person people called when something went wrong. When my parents needed help with paperwork, they called me. When my father needed someone to fix a problem, they called me. When Olivia needed someone to cover for her mistakes, and somehow they called me too. For years, I convinced myself that being the reliable one was a good thing. I thought being needed meant being loved. I didn't realize that sometimes people only remember your value when they need something from you. My sister and I took very pat. Olivia always wanted the perfect relationship, the perfect, and I wanted that for her. I was never jealous of myself. I celebrated her achievements. I attended her parties. I supported her dreams, even when she forgot. After college, I built my own life. I worked hard. I saved money. I bought my first home before I turned. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't luxurious, but everything inside the walls represented years. The biggest thing I ever bought was a small lake house outside Portland, a quiet place surrounded by trees and water, a place where I could escape from the noise of everything. Nobody in my family knew how much house, because I never took money, never wanted anyone to think I had something to use, especially Olivia. My sister had always been good at making it about herself. If I achieved something, she found a way. When I bought our first house, she said, nice. Then she immediately talked about the expense of a when emotion, she said, that's great. Then she spent an hour talking about her career plans. Ignored it. Because that's what younger sisters do. We make excuses. We tell ourselves that's just is. Then came the day Olivia announced her. My entire family was excited. Parents cried. My mother immediately started planning. My father talked how proud he was. Everyone was focused on Olivia, and I was happy for her. I really was. She called one evening. Emma, I have big news. I smiled. I know. Mom already told me. She laughed. I will tell you myself. For a moment, felt special. Like maybe it would be different. Maybe. My sister finally saw me as someone important. She told me about the proposal, the wedding plans, the future they imagined together. I listened to everything. I asked questions. How happy I was. Then I said something I truly meant. I'm so excited to do. There was a pause, a strange pause. What do you mean? Olivia asked. Laughed. What do you mean? I'm your sister. Of course I'll be there. Another pause, longer this time. Then, Emma, I don't think that will work. I didn't what won't work. The wedding, smiled awkwardly. Are you enough seat? No. Her voice became quieter, keeping it small. Looked around my apartment. The room felt very quiet. How small? I just close people. I waited for her to say, of course you're included. But she did. She said, you would understand. Though more than I expected. Understand what? I asked. That Daniel and I want this day to be about to us. I didn't know what to say. It was her sister. Only sister. I finally asked, so, I'm not There was silence. Then Olivia said, sorry. Was it no explanation, no apology, no wish things were. Just, I'm sorry. I sat there holding the phone trying to understand how someone could say those words so easily. A few days later, my parents called. They were discussing wedding details. Mother sounded excited. The venue is beautiful. Decorations are incredible. Olivia has always of a day like this. I listened quietly. Then I asked, Mom, did Olivia tell you I'm... The phone went silent. My mother finally said, Emma, don't make this about you. That sentence stayed with me, because somehow, even, my hurt became an inconvenience. I'm not trying to win anything. I just don't understand. My father spoke. Next. Your sister has a right to choose who she wants. There. At the window, at the city lights, at the life I had built. I said. But I'm still hurting. My mother sighed. Please don't create drama before her wedding. Drama. That was the word they used. not pain, action, drama, and when something inside changed. For years, I accepted being the second choice, the back plan, the person who was expected to understand. Being there alone in my apartment, I finally asked my question I had avoided for years. What if I stopped trying so hard to be included by people who never made space? The wedding, I wasn't there, but I saw everyone smiling. My parents sitting proudly beside Olivia, my relative, celebrating. My sister looked happy, like the life she always wanted. And for the first time, I didn't feel angry. I thought that was the end. I thought my sister and I would make mine. What I didn't know was that only a few weeks later, Olivia would call me again. But this time, she wouldn't be calling to invite. Calling because she needed something she never thought I would refuse. The sister who always took more. For years, I believed Olivia and I simply had different personalities. I thought that was the reason we were never truly close. She was outgoing. I was quiet. She loved attention. I preferred staying behind the scenes. But after the wedding, I started looking back at our relationship differently, and I realized something painful. Maybe we were never just different. Maybe I had spent my entire life making excuses for someone who never tried to understand me. Growing up, Olivia was always the special one. At least that's how it felt. When she won a school award, my parents celebrated for weeks. They took pictures. They invited relatives over. They told everyone, Olivia has such a bright future. When I won something, it was different. My parents would smile and say, "That's nice, Emma." Then the conversation would move on. I used to tell myself it didn't matter, because I wasn't looking for attention. I didn't need everyone cheering for me. But deep down, every child wants to feel chosen, even the quiet ones. I still remember my high school graduation. I had worked incredibly hard. I earned a scholarship. I was the first person in my family to receive one. I looked into the crowd hoping to see my parents' proud faces. They were there, but they weren't looking at me. They were answering Olivia's phone call. She had just broken up with her boyfriend, and somehow, that became the most important thing happening that day. My mother apologized later. "Your sister was going through a difficult time." I nodded, because that's what I always did. I understood. I forgave. I moved on. That became my role in the family. The understanding daughter. The responsible daughter. The daughter who didn't create problems. And Olivia learned something very early. If she needed something, someone would make it happen. When she wanted a better car, my parents helped her. When she wanted to move to a nicer apartment, they supported her. When she changed career paths 3 times, they told her she was finding herself. Nobody questioned her choices. But when I made decisions, I was expected to be practical. When I bought my first home, my father asked, "Are you sure this is a good idea?" I was confused. Why wouldn't it be? He shrugged. Buying a house is a big responsibility. I almost laughed, because Olivia had spent years making expensive decisions without anyone questioning her. But I was the one they worried about. That was the pattern. Olivia received support. I received expectations. And somehow, I still loved my family. Because people don't stop loving their family just because they are hurt. They keep hoping. They keep waiting. They keep believing things will change. That was exactly what I did before Olivia's wedding. Even after she didn't invite me, a part of me still hoped she would call. Maybe she would realize how hurtful it was. Maybe she would apologize. Maybe she would say, "Emma, I made a mistake." But she never did. Instead, I saw pictures online. My parents smiling. My relatives celebrating. Olivia wearing the dress she always dreamed about. Everyone looked happy. Everyone except me. A week after the wedding, my mother called. At first, I thought she might finally talk about what happened. I thought maybe she would say, "I'm sorry we didn't stand up for you." Instead, she asked, "Are you still upset?" I didn't know how to answer, because the question itself told me everything. She wasn't asking, "Are you hurt?" She was asking, "Are you still causing a problem?" I took a deep breath. "I'm not angry, Mom." "Then why are you acting distant?" I looked around my apartment, the quiet space I had created for myself, the life I built without asking anyone for help. "I just need some time." My mother sobbed. "Emma, family shouldn't hold grudges." I almost smiled, because family also shouldn't make you feel like you don't belong. But I didn't say that. Not this time. For the first time, I stopped explaining myself. I stopped trying to convince people that my feelings matter. And something strange happened. The less I chased their approval, the lighter I felt. A few weeks passed. I focused on work. I spent weekends at my lake house. I started enjoying the peace I had created. That house became more than just a property. It became the one place where I never felt like the second choice. No one compared me. No one ignored me. No one made me feel like I had to earn my place. It was mine. Everything about it. The lake, the tree, the quiet morning, the feeling that, fine, I belonged to someone. But then one evening, my phone, I looked at the screen. It was Olivia. For a moment, I almost didn't answer, because after weeks of silence, I knew this call was not random. I picked. Her voice sounded not confident like before, not distant, almost nervous. I need to ask you for something, I said, no, because deep, I already. The sister who didn't want me at her wedding was calling because she needed something I had, and what she wanted was the one thing she never thought she would have to ask me. The lake house nobody knew about. When Olivia called that night, I already knew something had changed. Her voice wasn't the same. The confidence was gone. The attitude was gone. For the first time in years, my sister sounded like she needed me. Emma, she paused. I know things have been complicated lately. I sat quietly, waiting, because I had learned something about Olivia. She rarely started a conversation by admitting she was wrong. Usually, there was a reason, a request, favor, something she wanted. I need your help, she finally said. There it was, the sentence I expected. I looked out the window of my apartment. The city was quiet, and for some reason, I thought about all the times I had helped her before, and times I covered for her, the times I listened to her problem, the times I showed up when she needed someone. And then I thought about how easily she decided I wasn't important enough for her. What kind of... I asked. There was a short silence. Then Olivia, I heard about your lake. My heart, not because she, but because of how quickly she went from rejecting me to asking about something valuable. Who told me? I asked. She laughed nervously. Did her? Yes, it mattered. I had kept that house private for... The lake house wasn't something I bought to impress people. It wasn't a status symbol. It wasn't a place to show off. It was the result of years of sacrifice. While many people were spending money trying to look cool, I worked extra hours, did unnecessary expenses. I built my career. There were nights when I ate simple meals because I wanted to save every dollar. There were weekends when I skipped trips because I wasn't lucky. I was disciplined, and the house represented every difficult decision I had. It was the first place I owned where I felt completely free. I remembered the first day I got the keys. I stood on the wooden deck overlooking the water. No family expectations, no comparisons, no pressure, just peace. But Olivia didn't see any. To her, it was a beautiful house. Resource, something useful. You need it for? I asked. Came quickly. We want to have a celebration there. I frowned. Celebration? Yes, he said. Daniel and I want to invite. Most laughed. Because suddenly my sister, who wanted a small wedding with only people, wanted to use my private another event. When? I asked. In 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Not. Comfortable with this? Not, would you mind? He planned it. Olivia, carefully. You haven't even asked if I went to you. I'm quiet. Emma, come on. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal. Words bothered me. Because to her, my time wasn't a big deal. My feelings weren't a big deal. It wasn't a big deal. But my lake house, that mattered. Family helps. Family. I closed my eyes. That sense. Family. Help me. Funny. How people only say that they need something. I asked, did you think about asking for my house? Silence. Real silence. For once. A low immediate answer. Then she said, Emma, that's not fair. I couldn't believe it. Not fair. I repeated. Yes, she replied. You know the wedding was complicated. Complicated. Another word people use when they don't one. I looked at the lake house photos on my wall, place I built for myself, the place where I felt valued, and I finally understood something. Olivia didn't miss me. She missed what I had. Didn't say that yet, because before I made a decision, I want to know something. Why do you really need my lake house? Came after a long pause. Because we want that everything is okay. Sentence caught my attention. Everything is okay? I asked. Of course, she said quickly, too quickly. And that's something was wrong. Olivia wasn't calling because she had a place for a party. She was calling to prove something. A few days later, I would discover the truth. The wedding everyone thought was perfect. Serious problem. The house wasn't just a convenient location. It was part of Olivia's plan to hide what was really happening behind closed doors. The real reason. She needed my lake house after Olivia's phone call. I couldn't stop thinking about one sentence. I want people to see that everything is okay. Those words stayed in my mind, because people don't usually say everything is okay, unless something isn't. For years, I had watched Olivia build a perfect image, the perfect daughter, the perfect career, the perfect relationship, the perfect life. But I also knew something about perfection. The more someone tries to prove they have it, the more likely they are hiding something. So I started paying attention. A few days after Olivia asked about my lake house, I received a message from an old family friend. Her name was Sarah. She had attended Olivia's wedding. She wrote, "Emma, I hope you don't mind me asking, is everything okay between you and Olivia?" I stared at the message, because I didn't expect anyone else to notice. I replied, "Why do you ask?" Her answer came quickly. Something felt strange at the wedding. Then she explained. The wedding looked beautiful. The decorations were expensive. The venue was impressive. Everyone was smiling. But behind the scenes, things were not as perfect as they appeared. Daniel had been stressed the entire day. He was constantly checking his phone. He disappeared several times during the reception. And according to Sarah, Olivia seemed more focused on appearances than actually enjoying her own wedding. That sounded exactly like my sister, but I still didn't understand why she needed my lake house, until I found out about Daniel's financial problems. It happened by accident. I was visiting my parents when my father received a phone call. He walked into another room, but I could hear his voice. "Daniel, I don't think this is the right time to talk about that." I stopped, because I recognized the name. A few minutes later, my father returned. He looked uncomfortable. "What was that about?" I asked. He hesitated. "Nothing." But I knew my father, and I knew when he was hiding something. "Something happened, didn't it?" He sighed. "Emma." That pause told me everything. Finally, he admitted, "Daniel has been having some financial difficulties." I was surprised. "How serious?" My father looked away. "More serious than Olivia wants people to know." Suddenly, everything started connecting. The rushed wedding, the need to appear successful, the sudden interest in my lake house. Olivia wasn't planning a celebration. She was creating a picture of a perfect life. She wanted friends and family to see a beautiful marriage, a successful couple, a future full of possibilities. But behind that picture, there were problems. I later learned Daniel's business had been struggling for months. Bills were piling up. Investors were becoming impatient. Their lifestyle was much more expensive than their income. And instead of facing those problems, Olivia wanted to hide them. My lake house was the perfect solution. A beautiful location, a peaceful view, a place that would make everyone believe they were doing better than ever. It wasn't about family. It wasn't about spending time together. It was about appearances. That realization hurt, because even after everything, a small part of me still hoped Olivia wanted to reconnect. I wanted to believe the wedding situation was just a mistake, a bad decision, a moment of thoughtlessness. But this was different. She didn't call to apologize. She didn't call because she missed her sister. She called because she needed something valuable. I decided to ask her directly. I called Olivia that evening. She answered quickly. "Emma." Her voice sounded surprised, like she wasn't expecting me to call first. "Can I ask you something?" I said. "Sure." "Is the lake house really just for a celebration?" Silence. A long silence. Then she said, "Why would you ask that?" "Because I knew." "Olivia, I need an honest answer." She sighed. "Emma, you're making this more complicated than it needs to be." There it was again. Not an answer, an accusation. I took a breath. "Are you having problems with Dan?" Another silence. This one was different, because she didn't deny. Finally, she whispered, "We're just going through a difficult time." I closed my eyes. A difficult time. The same phrase people use when they don't want to admit how serious something is. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. Her answer surprised me. "Because I knew you would judge." I almost laughed. Judge? I had spent my entire life supporting. But before I could answer, she said something that changed the entire conversation. "Emma, please. We really need this. Not, I miss you. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I want my sister back. We need this." Those words made everything clear. Olivia didn't see my lake house as a gift. She saw it as a solution. And for the first time in my life, I wondered if my sister had ever truly seen, because the next thing she asked me would reveal exactly how far she was willing to go. The favor that became an expectation. When Olivia called me again the next day, I already knew what she wanted. She didn't need to say much. I could hear it in her voice. The confidence was back. The hesitation was gone. "Emma, I hope you've had time to think about it," she said. I looked out at the lake house photos sitting on my desk, the place I had worked years to create, the place where I found peace. "Think about what?" I asked. She laughed softly. The lake house. The way she said it bothered me. Like the decision had already been made. Like the only thing left was for me to agree. Olivia, I said. I haven't said yes. There was a pause. I know, she replied. But I assumed you would understand. Understand. Again, that word. I wondered how many times I had been expected to understand things that hurt me. I understood when she needed more attention. I understood when my parents missed my achievements because they were focused on her. I understood when she didn't invite me to her wedding. But who understood me? I need to be honest, I said. I don't feel comfortable lending my house. The silence on the other end was immediate. Not sadness, not disappointment, anger. Seriously? Olivia asked. Yes. I can't believe you're saying that. I was surprised. Not because she was upset. Because she sounded offended. Why? I asked. Because we're family, she answered. There it was. The sentence I expected. Family. The same word she ignored when she left me out of the most important day of her life. Olivia, I said calmly. Family didn't seem to matter when you decided I wasn't part of your wedding. The line became quiet. For a moment, I thought she might apologize. Maybe she would finally admit she hurt me. Instead, she said, that was different. I closed my eyes. How is it different? She sighed. Emma, you know how stressful weddings are. I almost couldn't believe what I was hearing. You had hundreds of people there, I said. And I was your sister. She didn't respond. Then she changed the subject. You know this could really help us. Not me. Not our relationship. Us. I asked. Olivia, did you plan this before calling me? Another pause. That pause told me everything. She had already decided. She had already pictured the lake house. The guests, the photos, the compliments. She wasn't asking for permission. She was asking me to approve a plan she had already created. I just think you're being unfair, she finally said. Unfair. I started laughing quietly. Not because it was funny, because I finally understood. When Olivia wanted something, my boundaries were unfair. When Olivia hurt me, my feelings were dramatic. When Olivia needed help, family suddenly became important. Emma, don't make this a big issue, she said. That sentence changed something inside me, because for years, I had been afraid of making things uncomfortable. I avoided conflict. I stayed quiet. I accepted less, but I was tired. I don't think I'm making it a big issue, I replied. I think I'm finally saying no. The silence was long. Then Olivia said something I never expected. You've changed. I looked around my apartment, at the life I built, at everything I achieved without being rescued. Maybe, I said, maybe I finally stopped letting people decide what I deserved. And she became emotional. Wow, she said. I can't believe my own sister would do this. My chest tightened, because even now, she was making herself the victim. But this time, I didn't rush to fix it. I didn't apologize. I didn't explain. I didn't offer another solution. I simply said, I'm sorry you feel that way. And then I ended the call. For several minutes, I just sat there. Part of me felt guilty, because no matter what happened, Olivia was still my sister. But another part of me felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. I thought the conversation was over. I thought Olivia would accept my answer. I was wrong. The next morning, my mother called, and before she even said hello, I knew Olivia had told her version of the story. The version where I was selfish. The version where I was refusing to help family. The version where she was the one who had been hurt. And now, my parents were calling to convince me to give my sister what she wanted. The family that expected me to give in, when my mother called that morning, I already knew what the conversation was going to be about. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't ask how I felt after everything that happened with Olivia's wedding. She didn't mention the fact that my own sister had excluded. The first thing she said was, Emma, I think you need to reconsider. Sat quietly, because I wanted to know something. Wanted to know if my mother was calling because she understood me, or because Olivia had asked her to. Reconsider what? I asked. My mother sighed. The lake house, of course. Not the wedding, not the months. Silence, the lake house. Mom, I already told Olivia. Answer. I know, she replied. That's calm. I looked out the window. The morning was peaceful, but inside, I felt the same old feeling I had carried my entire life. The feeling that everyone expected me to be the reasonable. Your sister is going through a difficult time. My mother. I almost smiled. That sentence sounded familiar. Olivia was always going through something, and somehow everyone else was expected to assist. Mom, I understand she is lying. But that doesn't mean I have to give her my mother became. Then it's not a. It's family. Or it was. The word everyone used when they needed something from me. Mom, I said slowly. Where was family when Olivia decided not to invite me to her wedding? For a moment, I thought she might finally end. Instead, she said, Emma, please don't up again. Like my pain had an end. Like once the event was over, I was supposed to forget felt. Can't believe you're more upset about a wedding invitation than those words hurt because they showed clearly. The problem was never what Olivia did, the problem acted. I think you already made your decision, I said. Mother sounded disappointed. You were more understanding. I looked around at the quiet I created, I built, and I realized something. It's the old Emma. They missed the Emma who always said, then they die. Emma who helped. The Emma made quiet. But that of me was gone. I ended the call. I received another message. Olivia. Oh, I can't believe you got involved. I at the screen. I didn't get Olivia. Didn't reply, and for the first time, I refend myself. That afternoon, I drove to my lake house. I needed space. The road there was familiar, the same winding path, the same trees, same peaceful view. The time I arrived, I remembered for this place. The first year I owned it, I spent weekends fixing small things myself, painting walls, repairing old furniture, flowers near the porch. Nobody gave this to me. Nobody handed me opportunity. I built it, and standing there beside, I realized, so protective of it. It wasn't because I help Olivia. It was because exactly what happened. She wouldn't appreciate it. She would expect, difference. Helping someone you love is a choice. Being used because people assume you will always is something else. That evening, I received another call, this time from my father. His voice was calmer. The message was this. Emma, mother told me what happened. I sighed. Of course she did. Your sister is upset. I looked at the lake outside. She upset because I asked, or because I said no? Didn't answer immediately. Then he said, can you do one thing for your sister? One thing? Funny how one thing was. Or just one thing. One favor became another. One sacrifice became another. One exception became. Took a deep breath. I spent my whole life being the everyone could count on, but never asked if I was. Oh, the became quiet. Then I said, I love my family, but loving someone doesn't mean letting them use, my father argue, because he knew I was. The next day, something happened that changed everything. Mutual friend of Olivia's contacted me, and what she told me made me realize my sister wasn't just asked to borrow my lake house. She had already been telling something completely different. The truth, my sister never wanted me to know. The message came from Sarah, the same family friend who had attended Olivia's wedding. At first, I thought she was just checking on me, but after a few minutes of conversation, I realized she was trying to warn me. Emma, I hope you don't get upset that I'm telling you this, Sarah said. My heart sank, because people usually say that right before they reveal something painful. What happened? I asked. She hesitated. Then she said, I think you should know what Olivia has been telling people about your lake house. I sat up. My lake house? Yes. I waited. Sarah took a breath. She has been talking about the celebration for weeks. I frowned. Celebration? She told everyone she was planning a special gathering after the wedding. That wasn't surprising. The surprising part came next. She said the lake house was a family place. I felt my stomach tighten. What do you mean? Sarah lowered her voice. She made it sound like your parents helped buy it. For a moment, I couldn't speak, because that was not a small misunderstanding. That house was not a family property. It wasn't something passed down. It wasn't something everyone contributed to. It was mine. Every payment, every repair, every sacrifice. Mine. Are you sure? I asked. Sarah sounded uncomfortable. Emma, I'm sorry. I thought you knew. I didn't. And so everything made sense. Olivia wasn't asked to borrow my lake house because she needed a favor. She was asking because she had already convinced people she had access. In her mind, my success had become something she could. I thanked Sarah. Then I sat there and wasn't angry because she wanted to use. I was angry because she erased the work. She did the years I spent saving. She didn't see the nights I worked. She didn't see every difficult choice I made. She only saw you. A place that made her look. Later evening, called. I almost her, but I wanted to hear the truth. Emma, her voice sounded frustrated. Why are you making this so difficult? Quiet. Continued. I already told people about this. I asked. She paused. Yes, but I agreed. Another pause. Emma, I knew you would eventually say yes. To my eyes, that sentence hurt more than anything else. Because she never considered that I say no. Olivia said, Did you tell people the lake belongs to me? Silence. Long silence. Then she said, What matter? Believe it. Matter. Did. The truth. She sighed. You always make everything so serious. No. Didn't get serious. She made it dishonest. Did you tell people our parent helped you get the house? I asked. Her answered for her. Olivia, I said, for that house. I know, she replied, but her tone changed, like she understood the words, but not the meaning. Then she said, I have to admit, Emma, you've always been lucky. That word almost made me laugh. Lucky. I would use. Remembered working 2 jobs after college. I remembered skipping vacations. I remembered them carefully while everyone else. No. Everything I had. Olivia, I need you to understand. I said, What? The lake is not a family resort. She became quiet. It is my home. For the first time, she sounded genuinely angry. So you're really going to choose a house over your sister? I looked around the room at the place I built it. I created. I realized something. She wasn't asking me to choose a house over family. She was asking me to choose between respecting myself and continuing to let my family boundary. I think you're the one who made this house, I said. Then a call. But I didn't know yet Olivia had one more move. Because the next morning, parents called an emergency family meeting. This time, everyone would hear the truth. The family meeting where everything changed. When my mother said she wanted everyone to meet together, I already knew what was coming. She didn't call it a confrontation. She didn't call it an argument. She called it a family conversation. But I knew my family, and I knew what that usually meant. It meant everyone would sit in a room, and somehow I would be expected to apologize for making things uncomfortable. The meeting was held at my parents' house, the same house where I grew up, the same place, where Olivia and I learned what our roles were. When I arrived, everyone was already there. My parents, Olivia, Daniel. The moment I walked in, I noticed something. Nobody looked angry. They looked disappointed. And that was something I had seen my whole life. When Olivia made mistakes, people protected her. And then when I set boundaries, people questioned. My mother pointed to the chair. Sit down. I sat. For a few seconds, nobody spoke. Then Olivia finally broke the silence. I just don't understand why you're doing that. I looked. She shook her, making everything so difficult. I almost smiled. Because somehow, the person who was hurt always became the person causing the problem. My father's. Your sister's wedding was an important moment in her life. I nodded. No. Now she needs help. I looked at her. Did she tell you what she told everyone about my life? The room became. My mother's expression. What are you talking? I looked. She avoided. That was the first time I saw hesitation on her. What did you tell? My father asked. Olivia kissed her arms. It's not. I shook my head. No, I think it is. I pulled. Not wanted revenge. Not because I wanted to impress her, but because I was tired of being the only person who knew the truth. I showed them the messages Sarah had sent me, the comments from relatives, the conversations, where people assumed the lake house belonged to the family. My mother read the messages slowly. Then she said, Olivia, is this true? Olivia became defensive. I never said it was mine. I stared at her. That answer told everyone everything, because she still was saying, I'm sorry. She was looking for a way to Daniel finally spoke. Olivia? Explain. I turned toward him. Explain what? Uncomfortable. And that was when the out. Lake house wasn't the only thing they had. Their financial problems were much new. Wedding had cost far to afford. Daniel's business was strong. They had been using credit cards and loans to maintain their lifestyle. And the station at my lake house just a party. It was a way to convince people successful. My father looked shocked. Why didn't you tell us? Olivia alone. Because we didn't want everyone to worry. Almost everyone. They didn't want everyone to worry, but had no problem making me responsible for fixing it. My mother at me, Emma. I knew what she was going to say before she said, "It can help them this once." This once, again, looked around the room. Parents at my sister at the people who had spent years to be the strong one. And for the first time, I didn't feel I felt clear. I want to understand. Nobody's. I am not angry because Olivia needed at my sister. I am hurt because she only remembered I existed needed something. Olivia's changed. Because she knew it was true. I would have supported you, I continued. Would have celebrated you. I would have been there for you. But you decided I wasn't. To stand beside you. Was silent. Then Olivia whispered, "So, you're just going to abandon your family?" Looked at her, and I answered, with the words I say my entire life. No, I'm finally choosing not to abandon myself. Nobody spoke. For the first time, there was nothing they could say. But what happened? Everyone. Because of apologizing, Olivia made a decision that changed our relationship forever. The moment I finally chose myself after the family meeting, everything changed. Not immediately, not dramatically. There was no huge argument. No one slammed a door. No one walked away shouting. Sometimes the biggest changes happen quietly. For the first time in my life, I stopped trying to convince my family that I deserved respect. I stopped explaining why I was hurt. I stopped defending my decisions. I stopped proving that I was a good daughter, because I finally understood something. People who truly value you don't need a long explanation to understand when they hurt you. For several days after the meeting, nobody contacted me, and honestly, I expected that. My family had always been comfortable with one version of me, the version who helped, the version who forgave, the version who stayed. They didn't know what to do with the version of me who had boundaries. A week later, my mother sent me a message. "I hope you're happy with your decision." I stared at those words for a long time, because once again, the focus wasn't on what happened. It was on whether I was the problem. I almost replied. I almost explained everything again, but then I stopped. I didn't need to convince someone to care. So I simply wrote, "I hope you understand mine someday," and I put my phone away. For the first time in years, I felt peaceful. I spent more time at my lake house. I started waking up early, making coffee on the porch, watching the sunrise over the water, and every morning reminded me of something important. I built this life. Not my parents, not Olivia, not anyone else. Me. But peace doesn't mean you stop caring. I still loved my family. That was the hardest part. Walking away from people who hurt you doesn't mean you suddenly stop loving them. Sometimes it means you love yourself enough to stop allowing the same pain over and over again. A few weeks passed. Then one evening, Olivia called. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "Hello?" Her voice was different. No anger, no confidence, no demands, just exhaustion. "Emma," she said quietly, "I need to apologize." I didn't speak, because I had heard apologies before, but I had rarely seen change. "I was wrong," she continued. Those words surprised me. "I was so focused on making everything look perfect," she said, "that I forgot about the people who actually cared about me," and I listened. "I should have invited you." A simple sentence, but one I had waited weeks to hear. "I should have been there for you the way you were always there for me." I looked out at the lake. Part of me wanted to say, "Why now? Why? Did it take losing access to my home for her to understand my value?" But I didn't say it. Instead, I asked, "Do you understand why I was hurt?" There was silence. Then she answered, "Because I treated you like you were only useful when I needed something." And that answer mattered, because for the first time, she wasn't defending herself. She was acknowledging what she did. But an apology doesn't erase everything. Trust takes time. I told her, "I forgive you." She became quiet. But forgiveness doesn't mean things go back to the way they were. "I need you to understand that." She whispered. I did. And for the first time in a long time, I believed her. Months later, things slowly began to change. Olivia and Daniel stopped pretending everything was perfect. They started making real decisions. They downsized their lifestyle. They faced their financial problems. They stopped asking others to rescue them. My parents also changed. Not overnight, but slowly. They started seeing me differently. Not as the daughter who could always handle everything, but as a person with feelings too. The biggest change, however, was inside. I no longer measured my worth by how much I could give. I no longer believed being needed was the same as being loved. I finally understood. My value was never determined by whether my family chose. I had value because I existed. A year later, I stood on the porch of my lake house, the same place that started the biggest conflict of my life. But now, it represented something different. Not rejection, not betrayal, free. I used to think losing my family's approval would break. Instead, it helped me find myself, and I realized something. Sometimes the people who hurt you are also the people who teach you the most important lesson. They teach you that love without respect is not enough, and family, no matter how important, should never require you to disappear. The life I built. After walking away, a few years ago, I thought losing my family's approval would be the most painful thing I ever experienced. I was wrong. The most painful thing wasn't being left out. It wasn't missing my sister's wedding. It wasn't hearing my parents defend Olivia. The most painful thing was realizing how long I had been trying to earn a place in a family where I already belonged. For most of my life, I thought love meant sacrifice. I thought being a good daughter meant always saying yes. I thought being the stronger person meant carrying everyone's problems. But eventually, I learned something. A person can love their family deeply and still choose themselves. The lake house is still standing by the water, the same wooden deck, the same trees, the same quiet mornings, but it means something completely different now. It is no longer just a place I bought, it is a reminder of every difficult year, every sacrifice, every moment when I chose responsibility over comfort. And most importantly, it reminds me that I was capable of building something beautiful on my own. My relationship with Olivia didn't magically become perfect. Real life doesn't work that way. Trust takes time, healing takes time, and some wounds leave scars. But today, we have something we never had before. Honesty. Olivia eventually admitted something that changed the way I saw everything. She told me, "I didn't realize I was losing my sister until I needed something, and you were finally strong enough to say no." That sentence stayed with me. Because sometimes people don't understand your value when you are always available. They only notice when your absence creates a space they can no longer ignore. My parents changed too. They apologized, not once, but many times. My father told me, "We spent years thinking Olivia needed more protection." Then he paused. "But we never realized you were the one carrying everything." That apology didn't erase the past. Nothing could. But it gave me something I had wanted for years, to finally be seen. As for Olivia, she learned to stand on her own. She and Daniel worked through their financial problems. They stopped chasing the image of a perfect life, and they started building a real one. Not everyone gets a second chance, but when people truly change, sometimes forgiveness is possible. The biggest lesson I learned wasn't about my sister. It wasn't even about my family. It was about me. For years, I believed saying no meant I was selfish. I was wrong. Sometimes saying no is the most honest thing you can do, because if you keep giving until there is nothing left, eventually you lose the very person you were trying to protect. Yourself. I still love my family. I still care about them. But I no longer confuse love with obligation. I no longer believe I have to sacrifice my happiness to prove I am a good person. And I no longer wait for someone else to choose me, because I finally chose myself. Looking back, I used to think my sister not inviting me to her wedding was the moment my family rejected me. Now I see it differently. That was the moment I stopped begging for a seat at someone else's table and started building my own. The lake house that once became the reason my family turned against me became the place where I found my peace. And maybe that is the greatest lesson life can teach us. Sometimes losing the people who only loved what you could provide is how you finally discover the people who love who you truly are. Because at the end of the day, a home is not defined by its walls. It is defined by the peace you feel when you finally belong there. And for the first time in my life, I was finally home.